1940. So after June 1940, Soviet ultimatums demanding Belarusia, Bukovina, and Kherson region in Romania, the Soviets entered these areas without firing a single shot, and Romania carved and caved to the Soviet demands, and the Soviets occupied these territories, even after Romania became socialist. So, big spoilers. Hitler was demented and crazy as he was, invaded the Soviet Union, not because it was winter, but because it was wet season. And a wet season is always worse than winter season. Trust me. As cold as ice and as wet as rain. So anyway, in June 1941, Germany broke off the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact by invading the So anyway, in June 1941, Germany broke the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact by invading the Soviet Union. For the first time in the invasion in 19 from the first from this time of this invasion to 1944, the areas annexed by the Soviet Union were part of the German Ostland or Eastland, except for the Moldovan SSR. Thereafter, the Soviet Union began to push German forces westward through a series of battles on the Eastern Front and the drive to Berlin. So after... Holy crap. So in the aftermath of the Second World War on the Soviet-Finnish border, the parties signed another peace treaty ceding the Soviets in 1944, followed by a Soviet annexation of roughly the same Eastern Finnish territories as those were prior in the interim treaties of the Karelio-Finnish Soviet Socialist Republic. So another 4% of land ceded to the USSR, and I do believe, let me see what else is there here to dissect. Soviet annexation, there is the Lapland Wars and the Continuation War, and the final peace treaty and the expulsion of Germans from the Lapland. So yeah, from 1943 to 1945, several conferences. So in the aftermath of the Second World War on the Soviet-Finnish border, the parties signed another peace treaty ceding the Soviet Union in 1944, followed by a Soviet annexation of roughly the same Eastern Finnish territories as those that was prior in the interim and the interim peace treaty as part of the Karelo-Finnish Soviet Socialist Republic. So from 1943 to 1945, several conferences regarding post-war Europe occurred in and as part of to address the potential Soviet annexation and the control of the countries in Central Europe. There are various allied plans for the states in order for Central Europe and the post-war reconstruction, while Joseph Stalin tried to get as many states as he could under his control as possible. British Prime Minister Winston Churchill preferred a Central European Danube Confederation to counter these countries against Germany and Russia. Churchill's Soviet policy regarding Central Europe defied and was vastly different from the American president Franklin D. Roosevelt. With the former believing that the Soviet leader Joseph Stalin was a devil-like tyrant leading to a vile system, which Truman kind of picked up. When warned of the potential domination by the Soviet dictatorships over parts of Europe, which would become the Eastern Bloc, Roosevelt responded with a statement summarizing his rationale for the relationship with Stalin. I just have a hunch that Stalin is not that kind of man. I think that if I give him everything I could possibly can, and I could answer him nicely, and ask for nothing from him in return, noblesse obligate, he won't try to annex anything else. And I will work with him and with me for a world of democracy and peace. Sounds like Bill Clinton, doesn't it? Anyway, while meeting with Stalin and Roosevelt in Tehran, Iran in 1943, Churchill stated that Britain was virtually interested in restoring Poland as an independent country. Because, I mean, you kind of left them hanging, you know? This is why we're in this mess, you know? Britain did not press the matter for fear that it would become a source of inter-allied friction, especially so close in the end. I mean, post-war is only like 2 years away. Spoilers again. So in February 1945, at the conference in Yalta, Stalin demanded that a Soviet sphere of political influence in Central Europe be met. Stalin eventually was convicted and was conceived. Stalin eventually was convinced by Churchill and Roosevelt not to dismember Germany that much. So Stalin eventually was convinced by Churchill and Roosevelt not to dismember Germany that much. Stalin stated that the Soviet Union would keep the territory of Eastern Poland. They already taken what they had taken by the invasion of 1939. I wanted a pro-Soviet Polish government in power. Stalin stated that the Soviet Union would keep the territories of Eastern Poland that had already been taken in the invasion in 1939. I wanted a pro-Soviet Polish government in power, in which would remain in Poland and in power and be friendly to the Soviet Union. So after restraint by Churchill and Roosevelt, Stalin promised a reorganization of the current post-Soviet governments and the pro-Soviet governments in Eastern Europe on a border and more democratic basis in Poland, at least. He stated that the new government's primary task was to prepare elections and to rebuild Poland in the Soviet model. What? I said in the democratic model. Roosevelt, chill, jeez. The parties at Yalta further agreed that the countries of liberated Europe and the former Axis satellite states would be allowed to create a democratic institution of their choice. Socialists. What? I mean democratic, Churchill. Relax, my friend, relax. Jeez, relax, big man. And, the right of all the peoples and the persistence of the right of all peoples to choose the form of government under which they will live. The parties also agreed to help those countries from the interim governments pledge to the earliest possible establishment through true fair elections and facilitate, when necessary, of holding such elections. So at the beginning of July and August 1945, Potsdam Conference, everything was Sovietized, the end. A clause added permitting this would occur for limitations, but limitations turned into 40 odd years that made the Cold War, so the end. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.